was doing multiculturalism and performance art before anyone had a name for them. She made a theater home for the young Sam Shepard, Lanford Wilson, Harvey Fierstein, and Blue Man Group, and just about every important director from the international avant-garde. Welcome to Women in Theater. I'm Linda Weiner, theater critic of Newsday, and our guest is Ellen Stewart, La Mama herself, who helped found what we know as Off Broadway because, as she once put it, I just wanted to help artists put on shows. Tell me about the cowbell.
It wasn't a cowbell, dear. It was just a bell.
It was just a bell.
A bell. When we started down in this little basement that could hold 25 people.
It was on 9th Street?
Yeah, 9th Street. There was a big crowd. I didn't know how to start the show. And somebody gave me a bell and said, just ring the bell and say something. And that's the bell.
And so for 40-something years.
43.
43 right. Years. Mm-hmm. Whenever you're here, you come out and greet the audience.
That's right.
And you say,
good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to La Mama. Welcome to La Mama at CINX, or welcome to La Mama in our, what we call our main building. And I say we are dedicated to the playwright in all aspects of the theater. And I do mean all of them.
And you do mean all.
Right.
When I was, just going through the list of the number of people and the kinds of theater that have the diversity is staggering. The diversity of the debut of Kantor and Grotowski from Poland and Suzuki from Japan and Peter Brook there. And, endless. All the puppets. I was in your archive the other day and just seeing the masks and the puppets that people are just saying now they're all discovering. But you've been doing this for, 4 decades.
Yes. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So...
I want to tell you, what my first puppet show was? It was called Headhunting, and it was from South Korea. We were down in the basement on 9th Street. And it was so small. And so we hung the puppets from the ceiling. And that's the way it was manipulated. But somehow we got it done.
So was that when the police raided you?
Well, not for that particular show.
No, but in that
they
theater.
raided me all the time.
Yeah.
Well, you see, Koch was making his reputation in the West Village. And he was working with Commissioner Moses. And they were cleaning up New York for the World's Fair. And Koch was cleaning up. He didn't clean up the West Village, and we were not called the East Village. We were the Lower East Side. He would come and clean me up. And I often say, people ask me, well, what do you attribute to whatever you're doing? I say, first, God, and then Koch.
Just in reaction against Koch?
No, not against Koch, but it is just that every time he would have me put in jail over there on 6th Avenue in the Women's Penitentiary.
Because of building violations and zoning?
No, doing entertainment without a license. You can get just so many convictions. So I was always running like to a new place, and he would find me, and I would go to jail again. And that's why I never saw any shows. In the beginning, I was always out on the sidewalk, wherever we were, watching for whoever was going to come and get me. And so each place that we moved was a little more large than the next place. And the would-be directors and playwrights and actors and whomever they were, they had to stretch beyond this little space in the basement, which was only big enough to put a single bed. The space got a little more large.
So then you had like 74 seats on the one on 2nd Avenue. You went from 9th Street to 2nd Avenue.
We didn't have 74 streets.
Not even 74 seats.
No, not
even that many.
No.
Right.
No, because we went from 321 East 9th Street.
Yeah. to Second Avenue.
Right, and I must mention my guardian angel, Stefan Slewatsky, and his wife, who helped me so much.
Doing what?
Huh?
What did they do?
Well, I don't know what you want, but you know, in New York at that time, in addition, you had the landlord's covenant. That meant any 3 buildings adjacent, one to the other, those 3 landlords could sign the landlord's covenant, which was legal. And this covenant said that no Jew, no Hispanic, and no Negro could live in those buildings. And of course, I was a Negro living in one of the covenanted buildings.
And this is the
61.
61.
That's right. And but Stefan Slowatsky had come from the Ukraine, had bought the building. He told me I didn't have to move. The police were coming all the time, taking me to jail. The people in the building began breaking up their bathtubs and their stoves and taking the railings off of coming down the steps in the hallway to make me go. And I didn't want to stay to see his building torn up. He told me, let the building tear. Anyway, I sneak out in the middle of the night and I went to 82 Second Avenue.
On Second Avenue,
right.
okay, yes.
And 82, I think maybe we didn't have 74
No.
seats, no. But we did
It was
have
grandiose of me.
No.
Yes.
We had a large playing area, which made a stretch. Now, this is the place where we did The Maids. Tom O'Horgan, who later directed Hair, but he did The Maids with boys. Yeah. So we were the first one to do Maids with the boys, and this was in...
This was Genet. And
64,
yes.
Genet's Maids,
yes.
you see. And we did many other things. We were stretching, you see.
Tom O'Horgan directed Futz, right?
He directed Futz.
About a
right.
love affair with a pig.
Right, which was really one of our landmarks.
Yes.
I had to get out of there, though, you see. So getting out of there, had to get out. Running, we went to 122 Second Avenue. It was 6 months before Koch found me there. And I lasted in there until 68, I think March or April 68. I do remember the last thing that we did there was, I think Larry Lookenbill did something there. Then we had to get out. And we ran to 8th Street, Bowl and Board, and he let me have a loft over Bowl and Board.
I didn't know
and
that.
That's where we were until I met McNeil Lowry. I'm trying to tell you
That's
this.
great. No. So this is the Ford Foundation and McNeil Lowry.
Right.
Yes.
He came with his wife because, you know, I started going to Europe. We were taking the place to Europe. And München at the Kammerspiel invited me to come and live in Germany with my group. And I was going to do that. However, somebody said, you know, they've got these foundations that give money. I don't know what any foundation is, but they suggested that I call, gave me the names, and I called around, and one foundation answered. It was this place called Ford Foundation, and they said somebody would come to see me, and sure enough, I forget, in the night, he came with his wife. We were at 122 Second Avenue upstairs over the cleaners thing then. And I told him my little story that I was getting out because I had gotten 2 convictions at the women's penitentiary. And if I got another conviction, I would be gone. Now, in the interim, I had learned how to use fake names in the jail. I learned a lot of jail savvy, see. But I still, in my name, I had 2 convictions. So I was...
As an impresaria.
As a whatever. Dear, you cannot imagine. You haven't, and it was the women's penitentiary. I don't want to go further. All right. So.
So you found this building where you still are on 4th.
Yes.
On East 4th
right.
Street, which
I took McNeil
Yes.
Lowry over there, and I said, if I had $25,000, we could fix the first floor. It was a building that had no roof, and it didn't have a back wall.
used to be a sausage factory, I read.
Yes,
Yeah?
but first you have to tell what it was. In 1863, it was founded as the Aschenbeutel Verein, which means the Cinderella Society, and it was founded for artists.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm told that the Philharmonic used to rehearse there back then, see? And finally, it became this sausage Frankfurters or whatever. But it didn't have a roof, and it didn't have a back wall. It didn't have any plumbing, and my dear, it didn't have any floors. You could get into the little crawl hole that you had to go through and look straight up to the heavens. On the third, what would be called the fourth floor, there was one piece of ceiling, and believe it or not, on it was a huge furnace. And this was at the top. Why it didn't fall down, I don't know, but it's the way that they heated the building. I told him we could fix it if I had $25,000. We just cover over one floor and never mind a roof. We would be legal, because I was always persecuted without a license, being in the wrong zone, being not this and that and the like. And these theaters were across the streets from me.
Now,
I have to tell you this
Yes.
part, though. The next day, I learned later, he had lunch with his wife and her dear friend, Edith Markson. Edith Markson was one of the women I dressed when I was working for Edith Lances at Saks Fifth Avenue.
a wonderful story in itself, which we will get to. Yes.
Well, but you talked about the
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
He had lunch. She told him, Mac, give her the money. And the next day, I got a call to come to this place called the Ford Foundation. And I went. And they sent me upstairs, and when I got upstairs, I went in someplace, and they gave me an envelope and just nodded that I should leave, and so I left. And when I got into the elevator, I opened the envelope, and it was $25,000 there. Okay. But he spent or the Ford Foundation spent somewhere around $300,000-$400,000 to fix that building.
And you know, we idealize off Broadway in the 60s. People, you know, we look back and say, what a golden age. Everybody was so free. It was open door, and everybody was doing this wonderful, courageous, vital, visceral art.
Right.
But we don't think about the fact that, you know, that you didn't have a floor and a ceiling. Let's talk a little bit about how you got from Cajun County, Louisiana, to...
No, I was from Chicago. Let's say Chicago.
Okay. So this is the mythology, the Cajun,
Mythology.
Cajun County,
We
Louisiana.
don't
myth?
have to go into that.
Okay, we won't do it. All right. So you were in Chicago and you wanted to be a designer.
Yes,
And why did you come to New York? A dress designer.
because the Chicago School of Design, fashion design, did not take color. So Ellen Borden, who was the wife of Adlai Stevenson, had met me. Oh, I can go into all of that.
That's okay.
She offered to sponsor me in this school of design. And they told her she would have to pay full tuition. I will not be able to fraternize with any students. I could not start my lessons until after official school closing, and any teacher who felt so disposed would teach me. I could not participate in anything that they did, and they wanted full money for that, so I didn't go to that school.
So you came to New York and then...
Well, somebody told me it was a school called Traphagen, and they took colored. So I came to New York to go to that school, which I never did. Again, it was one of these things that happened. I came to New York in May 1950, and in August 1950, without going to school, I was an executive designer at Saks Fifth Avenue. Okay.
You went to Saks. They hired you as a
No, Edith Lances was like
trimmer?
Yeah. You
A
cut
trimmer
the threads
cuts the
off
threads?
of custom-made garments. Right.
And people saw your clothes when you were at Saks, and they
Well,
asked...
wait a moment.
Okay. All right.
Colored had to wear blue smocks, and the men had to wear blue, jacket kind of thing. You could only take your smock off at lunchtime. And you were not allowed to be called Miss, but you had to call every white person Miss or Mr. They could only call you by your first name, but you could take your smock off. I don't know how to tell you all of this, but in the meanwhile, I had been befriended by a little man whom I call my Papa Diamond.
This is Abraham Diamond
From
Orchard Street.
From Orchard Street. And he used to buy me beautiful materials from the Grand Street Silk House. And I would take it home and I would make something. And then I would go down on Sunday and show my Papa Diamond what I made. And I was his daughter, the designer. Well, and I would wear to Saks Fifth Avenue. And there was this rumor that there was this beautiful colored French model wearing Balenciaga clothing. And it was a promotion. And everybody wanted to know who this was, including me. I didn't have any idea they were talking about me. But one woman, the women would stop me on the way and ask where they could buy what I had on. And these white women stopping me. I don't want to lose my job. I try to explain it's mine, and it was terrible.
So they made you a designer, and then how did you get?
No, they didn't. It was not they, dear. It wasn't no that.
There is no they.
This one of the women made them.
This was at Saks.
Yes, go to every department until she found me like Cinderella sitting in my blue smock, and then after that, many things happened, and which gave Edith Lancis, for whom I work. She created a mezzanine, rented a mezzanine, and put an atelier there for me. I have to tell you this a little bit. It was very difficult because overnight I became Miss Ellen. I had black dress, I had pearls, I had the whole works. Huge atelier. She put ads in the New York Times for persons to work. She asked for couturier assistants. And of course, when the white couturier assistants came and they saw black me, they wouldn't work with me. This is important. But Saks Fifth Avenue had a covenant with the State Department where Jews who had survived the Holocaust, both men and women, depended upon their abilities. They would bring them to America with one suitcase and $5. They would have an apartment and a job waiting. And this is the way I got 15 women couturier assistants from my atelier, and it was glorious. They were more old than me, and that's where I got the name Mama. People fantasize. They all called me Mama. And I worked in fashion many years.
But you were very young.
But I was Mama to them, because in the United States, the only person, unless they brought a child with them, the only person that they had, that we were together, was me. So it was a fabulous time.
And from there
so
to
Mama
the theater?
To this day.
From there to the theater?
Well, I didn't want to do theater. I just make this for Freddie Lights. And
Freddie Lights was your foster brother?
No, my mother used to take care of him.
I see.
Right, for his mother while she worked. But he was like a brother. Mm-hmm.
And he had had some horrible experience on Broadway, and so you very disillusioned. Is that also a myth, or?
No, it's not a myth. My brother wrote a play. Well, I'll tell you. In the first place, he came from Howard University. And Howard University wanted to add more to their curriculum, because this way you get a little more money for doing what you're doing. And they decided to put a theater program in the school, you see. And somebody was coming to audit them, and they didn't have any theater school. They didn't know they were going to be audited. So frantically, they asked anybody who could write something. And Freddie wrote a play, a beautiful play evidently, because from that play, Howard University got its drama department certified.
Wow.
And he was brilliant. Wow. And from being brilliant, he was the first colored to be allowed to go to Yale School of Drama. And he had one professor, Professor Cole, who believed in him very much. his plays that he submitted to Yale had to be the best because he was colored,
Sure.
and they were the best, and he stayed the best one while his whole time until he graduated. So,
We have so little time.
well,
so
I don't know,
yes,
but you
yes, I'm
asked me.
very, very fascinated.
can tell
I'm
you.
fascinated now, but he had a bad experience on Broadway, and
well,
you
things
wanted,
happened.
Yes.
Things happened. But anyway, the gods of the light put him with Carol Channing and her husband and a production company. And he wrote a play called Samson and Lila Dee. And Carol Channing said she was looking for something after Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Don't have to be, it was a black musical, don't have to be a black musical. They changed it to the name of Vamp. Called in John Latouche. Ruined my brother. The play was the first $400,000 disaster on Broadway. And it was a disaster for him. It put something he not could write. And I thought if I had this little thing in the basement, and there was Paul Foster who wanted to be a playwright. He was studying to be a naval architect. And for the two of them, well, okay. Because I was in Morocco and my Papa Diamond came back and I had a vision and he told me, go and get a push cart. And I left Morocco and I came back and I put it in the basement for those two. Freddie never wrote anything. Paul hadn't written anything. And in the interim, he ventured to write his first play, to which I swore I would never say anything about. But after that, he's the person that wrote Tom Paine and et cetera, and et cetera.
And there it was, and there you were in the middle of what became off Broadway. And Cappuccino was in 58.
Cappuccino was
58.
1958.
Yes.
He is truly the papa.
That is the Papa,
I
yes.
came in 61.
Uh-huh.
I'm the mama.
Okay.
And I always say, you know, I loved Joe Chino very much, and he loved me. I didn't know he existed, and he didn't know I existed. We were at opposite poles. It's a whole other story. How did we meet?
Yeah.
But my little thing was going, and his thing was a big thing.
Yeah.
My thing was a little thing. But I was just going, and
But
he
how
was
did
going.
you survive? I mean, when...
Because I worked, honey.
I mean, here it is, 43 years later, and while you went through the Reagan 80s and all of the years
Well, now, wait
that,
a moment. I
Yes.
have to give the Reagan 80s some credit. Because in the Carter time, the National Endowment took the money away from me, said I could not have it because La Mama was not American. They gave money.
Because you had too many foreign
Yes, they
performers.
said they gave money to do Americana for Americans, with Americans, by Americans, and to Americans. And our work was not that. And suggested that if I knew Gordon Davidson,
in Los
right,
Angeles at the Taper
that
Forum.
I should ask him if I could come and be an intern, and I could learn to turn La Mama into the Mark Taper Forum, because they considered his place the epitome of theater in the United States. Of course, Gordon would let me do anything I wanted in his theater. We are very close. We are really very close. But I would never, ever do that. However, the Reagan administration, after a few years, gave me my money back.
Uh-huh.
So I have to say that for the Reagan.
Yeah.
And I have to say that for the Carter.
But you are still running this theater and the annex a few doors down, up, sideways,
Right.
and still producing this astonishing quantity of different kinds of arts events all the time, importing people, giving people chances, and with a kind of structure. Everyone else sort of became a business model. All these other theaters, when they get their boards and they're encouraged to run a bureaucratic business model. And yet we have almost no time at all, but I'm amazed that you've been able to do this with running it your way.
Well, dear, we never did get any money. And I always wondered why some people who could have helped us didn't. However, we do more theater than anybody, and we get far less money.
And you're very, very famous in Europe, internationally famous.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much. It's really been a privilege to have you here, Ellen Stewart.
Well,
from
thank
Alabama.
you. It's a pleasure to talk to you, honey.
And thank you for being here. On behalf of the League of Professional Theater Women, I'm Linda Weiner, and this has been Women in Theater.